What if I told you that in just 6 days, a tiny nation surrounded by enemies not only survived, but redrew the map of the Middle East forever? How did Israel, outnumbered and encircled, crush 3 Arab armies in less than a week? The seeds of the Six-Day War were planted in the ashes of 1948. Israel had barely survived its war of independence, but the wound never healed. Arab leaders swore revenge, vowing that the Jewish state would be erased. Through the 1950s and 60s, border clashes with Egypt, Syria, and Jordan became routine. Farmers plowing fields heard sniper fire. Civilians lived under the constant threat of artillery from the Golan Heights. Fear was everyday life. Egypt's fiery president, Gamal Abdel Nasser, became the symbol of Arab nationalism. To him, Israel was a cancer in the Arab world. And by the mid-1960s, he was preparing for something far bigger than words. High above northern Israel, Syrian guns fired on villages from the Golan Heights. Imagine farming your land, hearing shells scream overhead, knowing death could come any second. The tension was unbearable. In May 1967, false Soviet intelligence told Egypt that Israel was about to invade Syria. Nasser seized the moment. He ordered Egyptian troops into the Sinai. The sands of war began to shift. Then came the move that lit the fuse. Nasser closed the Strait of Tiran, choking off Israel's vital shipping routes. To Israelis, this was not just provocation. It was an act of war. Egypt rallied allies. Syria vowed destruction. Jordan signed a defense pact. Suddenly, Israel faced a three-front war. The Arab world was united under one goal: wipe Israel off the map. Inside Israel, dread spread. Citizens dug trenches. Gas masks were distributed. Graves were dug in advance. The government feared tens of thousands of civilian deaths if war broke out. Israel begged the US and Europe for help. But Washington was bogged down in Vietnam, and Europe turned away. Israel realized it was alone. The choice: wait to be struck, or strike first. June 5, 1967, before dawn. Israeli leaders made a decision that would change history: a preemptive strike. The plan was daring, almost suicidal: destroy Arab air forces before they could even take off. At 7:45 a.m., Israeli jets roared into the sky. Operation Focus was underway. Flying low to avoid radar, hundreds of fighters swept toward Egyptian airfields. The pilots held their breath. One mistake, and Israel was doomed. Then, impact. Bombs ripped through Egyptian runways. Fighter jets exploded in fireballs. In minutes, the Egyptian Air Force, the pride of Nasser, was burning wreckage. Israel had gambled everything, and it was paying off. But would the others join the fight? They did. Syria shelled northern Israel. Jordan attacked Jerusalem. Soon, the war exploded on all fronts. Israel was fighting for survival, everywhere, all at once. In the desert, Israeli tanks surged forward. Egyptian divisions, shocked and leaderless, collapsed under the assault. Soldiers abandoned weapons, fleeing in panic across the Sinai. Entire brigades disintegrated. Meanwhile, Jordanian artillery rained shells onto Jerusalem. The old city shook. Civilians huddled in bunkers. The city of prophets was once again a battlefield. Israel struck back. Paratroopers advanced through narrow streets. House-to-house combat raged. Bullets echoed in the holy city. Every stone seemed to bleed history. And then, the moment of moments. Israeli soldiers reached the Western Wall, the holiest site in Judaism, lost for nearly 2,000 years. Some wept. Some prayed. The old city was in Israeli hands. As Israel's victories spread, the Arab world was stunned. How could 3 armies, larger and better supplied, be collapsing so fast? Leaders whispered the unthinkable: Israel might actually win. In Cairo, Nasser was humiliated. His air force annihilated, his army shattered. He went on the radio, promising victory, but deep down, he knew the war was slipping away. Still, Syria fought on. From the Golan Heights, their artillery thundered. The high cliffs gave them power. To take it, Israel would need to climb straight into fire. Israeli commanders hesitated. The Golan was a fortress. But after days of shelling, the decision was made: attack. It would be one of the most brutal battles of the war. Israeli troops scaled rocky slopes under relentless fire. Tanks struggled up narrow passes. Soldiers fell, but the assault pushed higher. The heights were within reach. Then, breakthrough. Syrian defenses cracked. Israeli tanks poured through. In hours, the mighty Golan Heights, the shield of Damascus, was lost. By day 4, it was clear, Israel wasn't just surviving. It was winning. In 6 days, the balance of power in the Middle East was tilting forever. The United Nations scrambled to stop the carnage. Diplomats pleaded for ceasefire. But on the battlefield, momentum was unstoppable. Israel pressed forward, determined to secure borders it could defend. In Gaza, Egyptian resistance crumbled. In Sinai, Israel captured vast stretches of desert. What began as defense was now conquest. Territory the size of entire nations fell in days. Jordan lost the West Bank and East Jerusalem. Decades of control vanished in less than a week. King Hussein was shattered, his kingdom forever altered. Syria's last hope, the Heights, was gone. Damascus itself lay vulnerable. For the first time, the Arab world realized Israel wasn't just a tiny state. It was a regional power. And then, silence. After 6 days, the guns fell quiet. Ceasefire. The war was over. But nothing would ever be the same again. Israel now controlled the Sinai Peninsula, Gaza, the West Bank, East Jerusalem, and the Golan Heights. In less than a week, its territory had tripled. But victory came at a price. Thousands lay dead. Cities were scarred. Families shattered. The human cost, on both sides, was immeasurable. Across the Arab world, rage boiled. How could this happen? Conspiracies spread. Leaders vowed revenge. The humiliation of 1967 would fuel decades of bitterness. For Israel, the war changed everything. No longer just a fragile state, it was now a formidable military power. But with power came responsibility, and new enemies. Palestinians were displaced in massive numbers. Refugee camps swelled. The war solved nothing, it only deepened the crisis, creating scars that remain raw today. In Egypt, Nasser offered to resign. Millions flooded the streets, begging him to stay. He remained in power, but his dream of destroying Israel was broken. The 6-day war redrew maps and mines. Israel had proven its might, but also inherited lands filled with tension, resistance, and fury. A victory that carried the seeds of endless conflict. The world watched in disbelief. Military academies studied Israel's lightning war. Generals around the globe asked, how did they do it? The 6-day war became legend. But victory raised questions that haunt the Middle East to this day. Could peace ever be made? Or had Israel's triumph ensured an endless cycle of war and revenge? 6 days. That's all it took to change history forever. But the question remains, did Israel win the war, or did the 6-day war simply ignite the fuse of conflicts that still burn today?